Hey, so as new people join the private game group, I thought I'd record just a quick little video kind of demonstrating some of the nuances, I guess, of the hybrid combat system, seeing as it's not quite 1.17, it's not quite 1.8, as much as some people like to just call it 1.8 combat. That's really not entirely what it is. So I just thought I would give a quick video, just so people can join and then watch and kind of have a general grasp of what's going on, at least conceptually, because there's not really anything you can look up online anywhere to help you with this very much. So, I'm going to break this video down into 3 quick parts. Part 1, probably be the shortest part, is the 1.8 element, or the 1.8 element that exists, and how that affects the game. Then I'll go over the 1.17 elements for those not familiar with 1.17, and then I'll go over the elements that combining these two systems into a hybrid system, as I have done, creates the unique elements. So let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing we're going to look at here is 1.8 style sword hitting in 1.17 and what it accomplishes. So I'm going to hit Mr. Superpants with my fist here to demonstrate the change in knockback. Don't shift. Do you feel it's knockback completely just walking and hitting someone? And then you also have that Superpants will hit me a bit. Demonstrate knockback being given. Alright. And then one thing that I do want to demonstrate is it doesn't really change it if you're running or if you're just walking at someone. The knockback's pretty much the same no matter what. That. I think you might get slightly more knockback when sprinting, but I don't think it's a huge difference. Now, this creates a couple of effects. The main one is that generally for getting combos, just running in a straight line and just trying to click faster than your opponent isn't going to work. It's going to result in situations, let me heal us both so I can more properly demonstrate, situations like this. You hit back on the sleeper. Where you pretty much trade, you might get a hit or two combo, but for the most part, you're gonna just trade. Trading happens a lot more naturally in this. So, your primary methods for trying to get combos, I would say, is try to take advantage of the amount of space between you and your opponent. You want to get a hit on your opponent right at the edge of where you can hit so they can't hit you back. Spacing is really important in this, something you really, and just that's why I really don't think running in a straight line at your opponent's a very good idea for the most part, just because look how much space you're giving up. But by kind of staying on the outskirts of the space that you can actually hit a player, you can kind of back out, get a hit, just kind of get a sneaky little hit there, back out, stuff like that, right? I would also say stuff like S-tapping, stuff like anything that just builds space between get a hit or two in, then rebuild space, get a hit or two in, then rebuild space. That's gonna be what you want to do in melee, beyond just run up and combo your opponent. Occasionally that can happen, but it will not happen as consistently as you want it to or think it will. Alright, now I'm going to go over the 1.17 aspects of this combat system, and like I said in the beginning, there's a lot more of these that you might not be used to than 1.8, because this is mostly 1.17. So the first thing I want to demonstrate to those unfamiliar is bows and crossbows and how they work differently and how they interact with shields. So Mr. Superpants here is going to be my test dummy. So bows work somewhat inherently differently in how they shoot in 1.17. So 1.8, how it worked is, no matter what I'm doing as the player, when I fire the bow, it's going to pretty much only take into account the angle of the bow when deciding how the projectile fires. In this version, it really cares about how you're moving. So if I'm standing still, fire a shot like this, it's gonna hit my opponent. But if I'm running, the shot's gonna behave completely differently.
It combines the two velocities.
Yeah, it's about the velocity. So both how the arrow shoots and the damage your arrow does is decided by velocity. So, to give example, a shot from here, I won't say zebra here. So just to show you, I'll shoot this way so you can demonstrate more. That's how an arrow fires when I don't jump. The velocity, me jumping, completely changes how the arrow shoots, because it changes my velocity. In this version, however, there is also shields. Zebra can demonstrate with his shield. I can try to shoot him with a bow. Does not affect, it does not do damage. Now, if I am behind Zebra and he shields, it will still hit. And I'll go over more into the specifics of shielding in a second. But it's really important, kind of like how we talked about positioning in bow fights. You really want to try to, especially because of this, if you don't have crossbows, which I'll get into in a second, you really want to try to get behind your opponent, right? Because the shield only will protect the front half of you. So if you can get behind your opponent to where they can't shield your attacks, get a couple hits in, that's going to be your ideal method of dealing damage. Now, another thing that 1.8 players might be more used to is the Zebra, if we can demonstrate, the jump shot close range bow fights, the these. And arrows work, as you can see, they just fly all over the place in this. It is predictable, it's just different. So, and as you've noticed, the damage done by these limp shots is much lower than just a fully charged bow shot. Those were doing around 3 to 4% damage each, where that did almost an entire heart.
Yeah.
As you can see.
Something I just did is I got shot, and since it deals knockback, my arrow went right into the ground when I was aiming right at your face.
Yes, if
So
you...
that's something I have to look out for.
Right, yeah. Anything that changes your velocity in any way while you're shooting will affect how your arrow fires. So just beware of that. Now, in some ways, this can make shooting a little more precise. If you want to make it more of an arc shot, you can specifically jump right as the arrow fires. You can arc the shot a bit more. Versus if you jump right before the arrow, like if you jump then fire your arrow while you're already in the air, it creates, to show the difference. You can do that, kind of do that, or you can just do a basic shot like that. You can control the arc of the arrow a lot more in this version. So those are all things to be aware of. Now, I will get into crossbows. Like I've demonstrated, Zebra can shield. Can't hit him. Bow will not work, and there's no enchantment you can put on your bow to make it go through a shield. What you can do, however, is use crossbows. Now, if you want to use a crossbow, it only will go through shields if it's enchanting piercing 1. But thankfully, that is an extremely easy enchant to get on a crossbow. It's pretty much the equivalent of power for crossbows. So, just to demonstrate how crossbows work, if you're not familiar, you just load the crossbow, and it's loaded. And then you left click again to fire it. And then every time you fire, you have to reload. Then you left click a second time, it shoots. One interesting strategy I've seen people utilize in games is someone, say we're having a bow fight. I'm trying to shoot the zebra with a bow, right? Zebra's shield. Right, I can't shoot him. One thing I've seen people start doing is, I'm going to shoot you with my bow, I'm going to shoot with my bow, kind of having a bunch of crossbows loaded and kind of rapid firing them. You have no limit in how many crossbows you can have loaded at a time, and it's just one click to shoot all of them, so you can easily shoot them like that. Crossbows overall are probably the best counter to shielding, just in a bow fight. So I would highly recommend going ahead and crafting one, if not multiple, to prepare for fights. Alright, this will be the last section of the video. This is more specifically how the 1.8 style hitting and the shielding of 1.17 interact to create kind of a new system. So, first off, Zebra Shield. One thing beyond that I've already mentioned, but you can kind of gather from me discussing how bows and shields work, is I can't hit Zebra head on as long as he has a shield up. However, if I'm behind Zebra, I can hit him as much as I want. And there are even certain angles, like if I kind of hit to the side here, you can hit. If you're above, I think you might be even able to, like, kind of get into someone and hit them if you really want to, but the shield covers a very specific, like, oval around the front of you. And beyond that, it's not going to protect you just infinitely. Like, I can't hit here, but I can hit here. So it just kind of demonstrates exactly what the radius the shield actually covers is. So I mentioned this earlier in the 1.8 section, but generally, again, you go in, you just try to hit someone. Either they shield or you just kind of trade, right? If you just kind of run in without thinking, you're probably it's not going to be an ideal fight for you. So using strategies like I said, trying to use your shield, kind of creep up on someone, hit them right on the edge of your max reach as a player for terms of hit, then kind of back out. One of your best options, probably, if you want to try to maximize the number of hits. Now, of course, if they're playing the same way, playing well too, then at that point you could instead choose, like Zebra, kind of do that, try to play kind of passively. You could just go in and just kind of crit them out. But they can adapt pretty quickly to that and begin just kind of start trading. You can get a couple hits advantage there, though, so you do have options. One thing I do need to point out, though, is shields have a shield delay. Now, Zebra, start hitting me. Just start punching me. Alright, let me demonstrate again. I'm getting punched. Your shield takes 0.25 seconds to actually deploy from when you activate it, from when you left click. In comparison to everything else, like a sword hit, there's no delay. It's just your ping, based on when you click the sword, and when the game decides, okay, now I'm gonna try and use the sword. But the game has an arbitrary delay on, okay, you clicked the shield button, I'm gonna wait 0.25 seconds, and then I'll start trying to shield. And then your ping will then make up whatever the rest of the time is your shield actually takes to deploy. So, if you're getting crit out in a situation like this, just punch me again, Zebra. Just shielding probably isn't going to save you. Zebra has played a lot of games and is familiar with the combat system. I think he does have a couple insights to share regarding this if he wants to speak up.
Yeah, axes exist.
Yeah, so axes do still work. I can actually give myself an axe real quick.
If somebody's just holding right click and you don't have any crossbows, your best bet is just knock them with an axe, and they'll probably be taken by surprise, and you can combo them for a bit.
I would still highly recommend using an axe, especially because generally if a player's just holding shield like Zebra here, they probably don't really want to melee in the first place. So you run in, you hit him with your, I didn't do it right. You hit him with your axe, and then you you disable their shield, then you start critting them out. That axes still disable shields in this, so just run in and crit them out. So that is a very effective method. Like I said, though, even in melee, just if you're kind of trading hits, punching, loaded crossbows are a really cool tool to have, right? You have a couple of crossbows, you shoot them all at once. That's a really easy way to go from an even fight to you're gonna win.
Since they deal knockback, you can use them kind of like rods, where you stop moving, but the other player is still heading towards you, so it's easy to get a couple extra hits. But you have
Now,
to be good.
yeah, so, to touch on a couple other things, lava buckets, very much an option if you want to try to use them, especially in cave fights. They do flow a little faster in this version. They flow faster in 1.17, and they're just easier to hit in 1.17. So, another option in PvP. If you could, there are some scenarios you can get Tridents. Um, those do a decent amount of damage. Another just general PvP thing I want to mention is diamond swords are extremely good. They do more damage than in 1.8.
I
And
think it's like 2 sharpness levels better than iron.
yeah, so you really want
Don't
to
quote me.
go ahead and make the diamond swords if you have the spare diamonds. I would maybe even argue that diamond swords are more important than like boots. Would
Oh,
you agree?
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so if you have like 4 diamonds, probably make 2 diamond swords instead of 1 pair of boots. At least in this version.
Uh, if you don't want to melee, I'd still suggest going for boots. So
Yeah, yeah, you can definitely avoid melee fights if you really want to. So I've talked a lot. This is more macro level PvP. I've talked a lot about trading, right, and how you can utilize strategies
yeah.
or get a combo where one player can do a lot of damage to another player without taking that much damage themselves, right? But for the most part, in teams games, which most of my private games will be larger team games, the number one way to win fights as a team is just positioning, right? If your team has 2 players versus one of their players, you're gonna win. It's not like this is a new concept, but in this version, it if you're taking a 2-on-1, you're really out of luck. So
Yeah.
I would really recommend really stress teamwork, right?
In 1.8, you can generally knock the other player away and focus on one, but since you don't take as much knockback, it's really hard to do.
Yeah, you don't have a rod. You don't have very many ways to get people away from you, right? If someone's
Yeah.
coming for you, you have to, okay, how am I gonna fight them? You can't, outside of just kind of running. Now, like I said, having multiple crossbows on your bar already loaded is a great way to do that. Goes through shields. You can delay the stagger of the hits where you knock them back once, knock them back twice, knock them back a third time, buy yourself time. But for the most part, if there's multiple people coming after you, you're going to have to try to fight them, and it's not going to be successful. It's just, you're not going to win. So, stay close to your teammates and really just try to avoid getting in those situations because the other team's just going to completely collapse into you and eliminate you. So
Yeah.
just really be conscious of where you're standing, the possibility of someone purling on you. Just be aware where everyone is in the fight and how quickly someone could close the distance to where you are. And could you get to a teammate or a teammate gets you in time to avoid a 2-on-1 or 3-on-1 situation?
Yep.
Alright, obviously there's a lot more to it, and I'm by no means a PvP expert, so there's probably a lot more that you can do or can't say. I just want to make this a general guideline of this is a different system. Here are the things you may not be used to, and this is just my general suggestions on what to do. I will reiterate the biggest things in this. You're not going to win 2-on-1 fights. Don't put yourself in that situation, because getting out of fights is really difficult. If you're getting just comboed in melee. Now, the one thing I will say is, in the event you do get just absolutely comboed, that don't run up to
Mhm.
someone and shield. That is not going to work. If you run into someone's area of effect where they can hit, you need to start hitting them back. Just running up to someone and shielding is never going to work. Now, if someone is comboing you, shielding may be your only option to try to get out of it and then counterattack. But outside of that, and then like I said, sometimes you can play with distance, hit someone right at the edge, shields, they can't hit you back. Try to play with distance a bit more, stuff like that. But for the most part, just getting in someone's face and then trying to shield isn't going to work. Make crossbows. Crossbows are an enormous benefit, both getting away from other players, punishing players for just holding shield, um, using them almost as a rod type thing, using them for knockback in a melee fight. They're just so useful. Make them, maybe make multiple of them. Um,
Yeah. The largest thing players complain about in 1.9 to 1.13 is not being able to use bows because people just hold shield and walk up to you. So crossbows are very important.
yeah, and crossbows actually discourage players from doing that because when you're just walking around holding a shield, you are very easy to hit. Um, Only other things, like I said, diamond swords are very good. Axes are still useful. Like I said, there's plenty of counterplay for someone just holding a shield. Crossbows, you have axes, you have so many options to deal with them. You just need to be aware of them. Alright, and I think that's going to conclude this video. I don't know how long this is going to end up being. I might trim it down and post a little bit, because this is just to be a quick little informal, hey, here's some quick tips on how to use this combat system. I hope you have found this useful. Thank you for watching.